the Virginia Horse Industry Board, Southwest Virginia Agricultural Association, and the Virginia Christmas Tree Growers Association are proud sponsors of Virginia farming.
This program's brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Large or small, Virginia farmers work year-round to help put food on your table. And Farm Bureau works year-round to help farmers and all Virginians. Farming, it's all good. To learn more, go to vafarmbureau.org.
Polaris, offering its hardest working, smoothest riding full-size workhorses, including the all-new 60-horsepower Ranger XP 900, hunt, farm, or trail. Polaris has the full-size Ranger you want at Polaris.com.
Brought to you by Farm Family, Life, Auto, Business, Farm. Meet Jim Gray, farmer's son, agribusiness owner, insurance agent. Learn more about his story at farmfamilypeople.com. Farm Family, the people you know. Hi everybody, welcome to Virginia Farming. I'm Amy Rocher. All-terrain and utility vehicles are used on many farms. There are a lot of tasks you can perform with them, and we're going to learn how to do those tasks safely when Chris Beverage joins us on Ag Insights. Then we'll talk about growing orchids when we go in the garden. Plus we'll have the Ag Calendar and a Minute in the Field video. All this plus the Ag News of the Week on this edition of Virginia Farming. House Bill 1430 will go in front of the Virginia General Assembly on Monday, January 28th. The bill was written as an amendment to the Right to Farm Act. The authors of the Right to Farm Act, Virginia Farm Bureau, is opposed to the bill, saying it would allow stores, restaurants, museums, and other buildings to be built by right on agricultural land. Now, supporters of the bill say it leaves county zoning authority intact, but simply protects the rights of small farmers while protecting traditional forms of farming commerce and constitutional rights on farm lands. I urge you to read the bill by visiting the website on your screen and searching for HB 1430. Decide for yourself and contact your legislators with your thoughts. Well, the DEQ and VDACs will be implementing a new strategy to address potential water quality concerns that may arise on small farms that raise livestock and poultry in a concentrated area. Now, the strategy builds on existing state programs to help meet Virginia's water quality goals, and it offers an alternative to additional regulatory requirements. It is not a one-size-fits-all regulation, but is site-specific and allows flexibility. The strategy, which was originally piloted on 6 farms in the Shenandoah Valley, emphasizes voluntary implementation of best management practices to address risks to water quality. VDAC's Commissioner Matt Lohr said additional regulations may be unnecessarily burdensome on many farmers, but a voluntary assessment strategy will provide better guidance when addressing water quality issues. DEQ is contacting farm owners to discuss the strategy and to schedule on-site assessments. If an on-site assessment identifies water quality risks or impacts, agency staff will work cooperatively with the farm owner or operator to establish a plan and schedule to address the water quality concern. Well, water quality and conservation efforts are taking place all over the country. The USDA's Conservation Stewardship Program is helping private landowners further their efforts to help the environment. The USDA's Bob Ellison has more.
In just 5 years, America's top conservationists have enrolled 50 million acres in the Conservation Stewardship Program, a program offered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service. This program is geared toward private landowners already using conservation, helping them elevate their efforts to the next level. With 12.2 million acres enrolled in CSP this year alone, the program is having positive effects on soil and water quality, wildlife habitat, and rural communities across the country.
Conservation Stewardship Program is the largest private lands conservation program in the nation, and it really does a good job of providing some benefit to producers who are doing good conservation work, and it also encourages them to do some different things that maybe they haven't tried before.
With the help of the NRCS folks, they were very patient and very helpful and helped me understand the different programs.
Through the Conservation Stewardship Program, NRCS helped install terraces, grassed waterways, solar fences, and conservation tillage systems. All of these efforts, called enhancements, help the producer while benefiting the environment as well.
Every producer that I've ever worked with who's been enrolled in the security program as well as the stewardship program look at it as kind of a badge of honor. They feel very proud to be a part of that program.
You are only a steward of this land. You might own this ground, you might pay taxes on this ground, but once you're gone, somebody else is going to take this ground over. You are really only a steward of the ground. Once that soil is gone, it's gone, and it really is your responsibility to take care of it.
Learn more by visiting your local NRCS field office. For the United States Department of Agriculture, I'm Bob Ellison.
Thank you, Bob. Locally, the NRCS and the Smith Creek Watershed will host a meeting next week in the Shenandoah Valley. We'll have that information coming up on the Ag Calendar. Well, rain was what was needed throughout the country in the summer of 2012 as the National Agricultural Statistics Service reports U.S. production of corn was down 13% and soybean production down 3%. Now, Virginia followed the national production rate for corn, down 10%. The good news for Virginia is that soybeans, peanuts, and cotton all posted record high yields. Virginia wheat producers also planted 290,000 acres of winter wheat, and that's an increase of 10,000 acres from last year. And speaking of statistics, I want to take this time to remind you to return your census of agriculture. The census was mailed in late December and is to be returned by February 4th. The census is taken every 5 years to ensure an accurate and complete count of farms, ranches, and the people who work them. Information from the census can help grow your future, boost rural services, and shape farm programs. For more information or to complete the census online, visit agcensus.usda.gov. Well, to feed a growing population hungry for quality beef, it takes farming operations of all sizes. Cindy Campbell reports on ways smaller producers can get big value out of their cattle.
Jerry Shin has a message for small-scale cattle producers. You don't have to be big to be good.
I encourage them to shoot for the high quality because I think that's where we're at. We're market-driven. And, you know, anybody can raise an old tough steer. It doesn't take anything to do that. And if you're going to make money in a narrow margin industry, you better go where the money is and the quality.
The owner of Performance Blenders helps Missouri farmer feeders gather and market loads of finished calves. The feed company analyzes and shares data too, so cattlemen will use the information to improve.
The best way to get cattle producers is dollar signs. They have to be rewarded, and we've been very fortunate. We've been able to get people to capture $100, $150 per head premiums over cash market. We've done that through Agent Source. We've done that through Quality Grid and quality characteristics, and just see the total overall efficiency and identify what the consumer in the marketplace wants.
He says no matter the size, everybody has two tools for hitting that target: how you breed them and what you feed them.
Nutrition is extremely important. I kind of use the analysis that, you know, no matter what the genetics are, we've got to give them enough nutrition to express their genetic potential. If we breed them to grow and grade, we have to feed them to grow and grade.
They routinely market calves at 1,250 to 1,400 pounds that are just past a year of age and reach upwards of 80% premium choice. The key to getting what those calves are worth is cooperation, he says.
They have to work together. We have to realize that, you know, we're not going to control, as a small producer, any packer, any order buyer. Let's be realistic. You know, what's one load of cattle mean? Not very much, but we just want to get that value, and it means something to cooperate from the standpoint to look at your neighbor. He might be a competitor, but you can see that it can be done. And I think that's real important with small producers, because oftentimes they think, I'm not good enough, I'm not big enough, I don't know how to play in the market. And when they work together, those things come to a surface, and it's really fun to see them take a hold and put things together.
I'm Cindy Campbell.
Thank you, Cindy. 10 lives were reported lost due to farm work-related accidents in Virginia during 2012. That's 3 more than the previous year. That's why Chris Beverage joins us to take a look at utility vehicles and how to safely use them in everyday tasks. This week, we're going out in the field on Ag Insights. Joining me today is Chris Beverage from Beverage Tractor in Stewart's Draft. Chris, welcome to Virginia Farming.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you can join us today, because utility vehicles are used a lot on our farms here in Virginia. I'd like for you to start out by telling me a little bit about this model that we're standing here in front of.
Okay, this model is a 2013 Polaris Ranger XP 800. This one is 50 horsepower, so it has a lot of power. It is fuel injected, so it's easy to start in the wintertime. It has independent rear suspension, so it's a very comfortable ride. It also has a 2-inch receiver hitch in the rear for pulling, which is very handy if you're on a farm. So. Okay,
well, then that takes me to my next question. What type of tasks could a farmer use a utility vehicle such as this one for?
More commonly, they're used for checking your property, checking fence lines. If you're building a fence, they're very handy with the cargo box. You can put your tools and supplies in there. We have a lot of customers that use them for pulling manure spreaders as well on farms.
Wow! So they can pull heavier loads.
Right.
One's this size.
Yes, this size will actually pull up to 2,000 pounds. Yeah, and it has a 1,500-pound payload capacity. So.
Okay.
They're also used. Polaris makes a snow plow that can go on the front, so that's common this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the farmers use the utility vehicles a lot, but the points I really want to stress to our viewers is really all about safety.
Right.
What's the first rule of safety?
The first thing you do when you buy one is you very much need to read the owner's manual. That will give you a lot of information as far as safety, as well as maintaining your vehicle. But you really want to read your owner's manual and follow the instructions that it gives in there.
Right. The guys who made it know
how
to use it safely.
Exactly. One thing to remember on a utility vehicle such as this is they're made for off-road. So you really want to try to avoid driving them on pavement or hard surfaces. It can be dangerous, especially when turning on a hard surface. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. A vehicle such as this, to operate it, it's 16 years of age or older. For a passenger, it's 12 years of age or older.
Okay.
So those are 2 important things to
And that's
to
important too, because I think growing up on a farm, the kids are expected to do a lot of the work. And even if they're too young to operate one of these vehicles, I want to talk about some of these other safety issues, because I think it's so important that we teach by doing.
Right.
The kids need to see the adults putting on the safety gear and all that. And I think it's important that the adults have to do it so the kids learn how to do it. So we raise a little bit of a safer generation.
Right.
So let's move on to some of the safety gear.
Okay, sure.
Let's talk about the gear that you need to wear when you're operating one of these, and let's start with your feet.
Okay. The most important thing is to wear closed-toed shoes. Boots would be ideal, but you never want to wear flip-flops or sandals or something like that.
Right. And the importance of that is?
Just for protection. You never know what could come in the side, so it's for safety, just to protect your feet.
Okay. All right, and then let's move on to gloves. I see you brought us some gloves here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gloves are important, especially if you're in the woods. You may have tree branches that may hit the rocks and could come over and hit your hands. So it's important to have gloves on just to protect your hands while you're driving, especially if you're in the woods or have something that could come into the cab.
Okay. And then I guess probably the most important aspect of the gear is
the helmet.
The helmet.
Yeah, the helmet is a necessity. Even if you're going on a short trip, you're going a couple hundred yards, you should still put your helmet on because you never know what could happen in that short amount of time. So the other important part of the helmet is the eye protection.
Right.
You always want to have the eye protection as well as your helmet. And I have goggles on here, but they also make some safety glasses that you could wear as well. But the eye protection is very important along with the helmet.
What about the visors that flip down? Are those safe as well?
It is, yes.
Okay, well the first thing I notice is that we have nets on either side of us down here.
We do, and these you always want to have lock closed whenever you're operating the vehicle. They just lock into place.
Okay.
That does a couple of things. One, it keeps debris from coming in on your legs, and it also keeps you from maybe extending out. If you're going, if the machine starts to turn over, your tendency is going to be to put your arm out, which on this machine your arm's not going to stop you from rolling over. So basically this is protection to keep you always want to have your whole body inside the roll bar here.
To keep you in and the debris out.
That's correct.
Okay, now let's talk about seat belts.
Okay.
Because, you know, generally the ATVs, like the four-wheelers, don't have seat belts. It's more the motorcycle you jump on. But these utility vehicles do.
They do. The reason for that is because they have a rollover protection system. It's actually more dangerous to have this if you do not have your seatbelt on, because what can happen is you come out of the machine and then the roll bar land on top of you. So it's not as easy to escape as it would be on an ATV, let's say, if it happened to turn over. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put my seatbelt on right now. And I also want to talk about passengers. This is a three-person vehicle.
It is. You can see we have a third seat belt here. So this particular model is made for 3 people. One thing that you do not want to do is ever have someone ride in the cargo bed of the utility vehicle.
As tempting as that may be, that really is dangerous.
Yeah, even if you're going at a slow pace, a short distance, you still never want to let anyone get into the cargo box.
Okay.
Yeah, also on the, as far as the seating, this one particular model seats 3. They make a smaller Ranger that seats 2. One thing to remember on the ATVs is only carry the number of people that it's designed for. So most ATVs are going to be for 1 person. Never ride someone to an ATV. There are some models that are made for 2, but if it has 2 seats, then it's made for 2 people. If not, just ride by yourself.
Keep it to 1.
Yeah.
Right. When someone is considering purchasing a utility vehicle, that the ROPS, the rollover protection system, is really important because it allows you to do more things. You know, I think about hauling heavier equipment like we had talked about earlier, but pulling tree stumps out, things that you could not do or should never ever do without a ROPS system in place.
That's right.
So these bigger vehicles really do allow farmers and anyone who uses them a wider range of things to do.
Right, right.
You know, in Virginia, we have a lot of rocks. We have a lot of hilly terrain.
Right.
We have a lot of obstacles that we need to dodge. So can you give me some tips just on driving safely?
Sure. On hillsides, ideally, if it's possible, you want to go straight up a hill or straight down a hill. It can be dangerous going across a hill. There are some instances where you would have to do that, and if so, you just want to be really careful as far as knowing the terrain, what's in front of you, if there are any holes, obstacles, things like that. So if you have to go across a hill and it happens to start sliding down the hill, then you always want to turn down the hill.
Okay.
That's an important thing to remember. And also, you want to, when you start up a hill, you want to put it in four-wheel drive before you start up the hill.
Okay, so, and that's this button right here?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, on the Polaris, it's a simple switch. You just push that forward.
So that helps keep your traction
on
the ground.
That's right. That way you don't get part of the way up and realize you need four-wheel drive, and then you're in trouble. So just put it in four-wheel drive when you start up a hill, and you shouldn't have any problems.
Okay, great. Okay, Chris, let's gear up and take me out and show me what this thing will do.
All right.
All right. Let's go. We'll be right back. Orchids are beautiful and delicate, and they're not as hard to grow as you might think. Let's join Mark Viette in the garden.
One of my favorite plants that even was my grandfather's favorite plant is the orchid. But you really don't need a greenhouse to grow orchids indoors. Orchids are a lot tougher than what you think. In fact, that's why a lot of people didn't plant orchids, because they kept hearing how difficult and how hard they are to grow. A lot of the orchids now are mass propagated via tissue culture, so there's lots of plants for everybody to try. And wherever you go, you'll see these orchids. You'll see these orchids in your garden stores, in your home stores. You just take them home, bring them, and all they need is bright light, in some cases maybe just a little bit of shade, depending on the type that you're growing. But the great thing about some of these orchids is that the flowers last for months. You have such a variety of color, shapes, and flowers, as you can see with orchids. One of the things that you need to keep in mind is where a plant naturally grows, you want to try to mimic that indoors when you're trying to grow that plant. You'll notice a lot of the orchids are growing on rocks, or they're growing up in treetops. A few of them might grow in the soil, but many of them really like that air. And so what happens is the roots are actually sticking out in the air. So when you water these, you water them well, you let them approach dryness, you water them well, and you let them approach dryness. Do not overwater orchids. Some of them bloom for anywhere from 1 month to 3 months, and some actually repeat bloom right through the whole year. Let's go look at some of my favorite orchids. The Vanda orchid, or the beautiful blue flowers that you see here, is one of my favorites. This is one that you can grow indoors. There's all different shapes and sizes. You even have some that are called the slipper orchids, and they come in a wide variety of green and bright red or purple, all the colors for your garden. Now the slipper orchids like a little less temperature, a little cooler, a little more protection from the sun, but they're easy to grow. When it comes to growing orchids indoors, they really like a loose and well-aerated mix, something with like maybe pine bark, pine chips, maybe even tree fern fiber, maybe even crushed bricks to grow them in. And what you'll find in many cases is that the roots will grow outside of the pot, and you can just miss those every time you water your orchid. Again, you don't want to overwater your orchids. When they go out of bloom, you can either leave them indoors and grow them till next year, or in some cases you might find a local greenhouse that will hold them for you throughout the year, and they'll bring them back to you when they come into bloom. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time in the garden.
Taking a look at our ag calendar, the NRCS and the Smith Creek Watershed Partnership will host a partnership meeting at 10 a.m. on January 29th at the 10th Legion Mountain Valley Ruritan Club near Broadway. Highlights will include grazing opportunities, cover crops, and future directions for the Chesapeake Bay program. The meeting is open to the public. That does it for our show. Have a great week, everyone. I'm Amy Rocher for Virginia Farming.
This program's brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. From apples to zucchini, Virginia farmers work hard to put food on your table. And Farm Bureau works year-round to help farmers and all Virginians. Farming, it's all good. To learn more, go to vafarmbureau.org.
Polaris, offering its hardest working, smoothest riding off-road side-by-sides, featuring the value-minded new Ranger 800 midsize. Hunt, farm, or trail. Polaris has the Ranger side-by-side you want at Polaris.com.
Brought to you by Farm Family. Life, auto, business, farm. Meet Nancy Asher, stable owner, visionary, agent of change. Learn more about her story at farmfamilypeople.com. Farm Family, the people you know.